Let's be honest, the SQE1 process sounds very intimidating, confusing, especially if you want to become a lawyer in UK. That's why this video is here. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down all you need to know about the SQE1. What happens if, God forbid, you fail, how long the booking takes, how to prepare, what the SQE1 entails, and how much it costs to take the exam. If you'd like to know more about the SQE1, please keep watching. If you're planning to become a lawyer in UK, you need to take two legs of exam, the SQE1 and the SQE2. The SQE1 tests your legal knowledge. The SQE2 tests practical skills. In today's video, we're going to be narrowing down our focus to the SQE1. The SRA's expectation, that is the Solicitors Regulators Authority, expects that any solicitor is able to apply functioning legal knowledge to any given set of circumstances. This is why the test and the questions are scenario-based, and because they are scenario-based, you have to have a practical understanding of all of the subjects. Some questions would combine multiple subjects, some other questions would only delve into one particular subject. But whatever the case is, you need to have functioning legal knowledge of every area of law that is tested by the SRA. The SQE1 is divided into two legs of exams. There's the FLK1, Functioning Legal Knowledge 1, and the FLK2, Functioning Legal Knowledge 2. I'm going to be listing right now on the screen the subjects that are tested in the FLK1 and the FLK2. I must note at this point that the subject of professional ethics runs pervasively across both FLK1 and FLK2. So you will definitely be coming across questions on ethics in both legs of exam. I must also note at this point that the professional ethics is one subject people tend to ignore. It's also one subject that can either make or mar your SQE1 score. You don't want to joke with it. The next question I'll be answering is, how is the SQE1 examined? The SQE1 is examined by 360 questions over a period of 2 days. So typically, you would be sitting for the FLK1 in 1 week and the FLK2 in another week. Each of these exams contains 180 questions, 90 questions in the morning, 90 questions in the afternoon on the first day, and the following week, you would sit for the FLK2, which is 90 questions in the morning and 90 questions in the afternoon. So altogether, that makes it 360 scenario-based questions, multiple choice questions, and questions are tested based on the most appropriate answer. So sometimes the question is not, is this the right answer, but is this the most appropriate answer? So this is why you really need to understand the nitty-gritties of the FLK1 and the FLK2. When does the SQE1 take place? So the SQE1 dates are typically listed on the SRA website. I'll put the link in the description for you to have a look and know when the next dates for the exams are. But they typically run in January and in July of most years. Registration opens months in advance, and the exam itself takes place at Pearson View centers all across the United Kingdom and in some specific countries listed on the SRA website. The next big question, which I know you're also here for, is how much this exam costs. The exam costs £1,934. That's split across £967 for the FLK1 and £967 for the FLK2. Unfortunately, you can't split and pay except if you failed one leg of the exam. So if you're sitting for the SQE1 for the first time, you have to pay for both legs of the exam. So what happens if you fail the SQE1? God forbid, we do not pray to fail the SQE1, but should in case someone fails the SQE1, what are the chances that they can take the exam? You're only allowed a maximum of 3 attempts within a 6-year period, after which you must take a break, and this is highly recommended by the SRA. Let's also note at this point that unless and until you pass the SQE1, you cannot proceed to take the SQE2. This does not apply in cases of exemption. If you've been granted an exemption from the SQE2 by the SRA and God forbid you fail the SQE1, it does not invalidate your SQE2 exemption. One other thing that is important to note at this point is the concept of examinable law and cutoff period. SRA tests your knowledge based on the current law, that is the law as it is. So this means that you could be tested on any change or updates in the law even months before your exam. If a new law comes out on tax, you need to know the actual tax figures as at that date. That date is what is called the examinable law cutoff date period. And typically, it's about 4 months before the due date of your exam. If you're sitting for your exam in January, for instance, the examinable cutoff date could either be September of the previous year or a specific date in September the previous year. Check out the SRA website for the examinable law cutoff dates for the exam that you'd like to sit for. This is very, very important. Now let's go over the actual booking process and how to register for the SQE1. The booking process usually takes place in stages. The first step is that you register your interest on the SQE portal. So you have to create an account on the SRA website first, and then you register your interest on the SQE portal. Registering your interest is not the same as booking the exam. Registering your interest only gets you access to first-hand information when the booking dates actually open. When the booking window opens, you're allowed to select your preferred exam dates and your preferred exam locations. After selecting your preferences, you're then sent a link to make payments. This link is usually sent some weeks after you have made your selection on preferences. I must also note at this point that the SQE1 is conducted by Kaplan. Finally, what are the resources that can help you prepare? The SRA has recently published questions on their website. These questions include sample questions that just gives you an idea of what the SQE1 could look like, and actual pre-tested question. My biggest recommendation is that you sit and tabernacle with those questions until it's ingrained in your memory. Those questions are very, very important and relevant. Also, there are a bunch of resources online that can come in handy and are very, very relevant. Some of them include structured exam prep, I-yielded notes, and a host of others. My best tip is to lay your hand on as many different resources that host practice questions, so you have a taste and feel of all the different forms of questions that could potentially be asked. Finally, you get a bonus, and the bonus includes common mistakes as regarding preparation for the SQE1. I think the first biggest mistake is treating the SQE1 like it's just another university exam. Trust me, if you recently graduated from the university and you studied law, if you did not study law, if you've been practicing law for years, the SQE1 is nothing like any of that. The SQE1 is a unique exam on its own. It has nothing to do with your experience. It has nothing to do with your background in law. It only has everything to do with your ability to prepare, understand the theories of law as tested by the SRA, and apply it to given scenario. Remember, the answer is usually not the right answer, but the most appropriate answer. Another common mistake is memorizing without practicing MCQs. You need to practice as many multiple choice questions as you can lay your hands up. Ignoring weak subjects is another point, and a lot of people tend to ignore their weak subjects. Each time you practice questions, check out the questions that you miss. Also check out the questions you were not too sure of and you just guessed, because at the end of the day, you want to ensure that you have a grounded understanding of the principles of law that could be tested. The final mistake people make is underestimating how tiring the exam is. Remember, I said you're going to be sitting for 180 questions in one day. 180 long scenario-based questions in one day. It's extremely tiring. No matter how intelligent you are, mental fatigue can definitely set in. So my best bet or my best tip for you is to ensure that you've practiced days before or days ahead under exam conditions, so you're not sitting the 180 questions for the first time in the exam hall. With this, we've come to the end of today's video. I hope you learned one or two things about the SQE1. Please subscribe to the channel to get more tips and helpful information about the SQE1 and navigating your career journey in the United Kingdom. See you in the next one. Bye for now.